Today we're here with an alumnus, Aaron Bito, and he's going to talk to us about his job and his work in the music and entertainment industry. And so, Aaron, we already know your name, Aaron Bito, but can you tell us where you live and where you work, and the year you graduated from ACHS?
Yeah, currently I'm staying in Fallbrook, California, which is about half hour north of San Diego. Um, I'm at the Recording Arts Center at Studio West, which is a professional studio and a school for audio engineering. Um, Worked at Best Buy until, recent things happened. And I graduated with the class of 2017 from ACHS.
All right. And so you just talked about recording engineering. That's kind of what you're after. Are you working in that, or are you just going to school, or are you kind of doing both? And is there more that you're doing than just audio engineering?
Yeah, so I just finished school. Technically, I'm done. I finished all my classes. Even during that time I was going to school, I was still doing work outside of the studio for audio engineering. I worked with a few artists. Um, I'm trying to get into more of the film side now, working with some friends and stuff like that. The audio world is kind of a grand scheme of things that you could get into. So I'm trying to test all the waters and see what I could get myself into.
Good. How did you get interested in audio engineering? What made you go that way?
Yeah, initially it was choir. That's what kind of really sparked my interest for music. That's where I realized I found my passion for music, and along with that, I had family in the music industry who would reach out to me and let me know to kind of they pushed me in that direction of going into the industry. And one of my aunties who co-owns a studio in LA told me, "Hey, look, everybody wants to be a rapper or producer, so it's leaving the spot of audio engineer pretty wide open. So the industry needs some of those people," and that's where I really took an interest in it.
Awesome. So you said you just kind of graduated from the school that you're at. What other kind of trainings and education do you need to have, or to go further in your field, or are you kind of where you need to be, or what's the next step for you in that?
Yeah, so I think in terms of what I have now, it's definitely sufficient. In terms of actual schooling, we did over 1,000 hours of classroom lectures, hands-on practical, practical hands-on stuff with gear. Along with that, I did 300 hours of my own time, like finding that within school time of being in studios and doing my own type of work, and figuring out, what I want to do with what they're giving us. Um, it's definitely a good thing to know actual gear, physical stuff. Um, it's I don't want to say it's easy, and then again, it's kind of hard to sit in your room with a laptop and kind of figure stuff out, because when you get into the industry, it all becomes real world stuff, and people are looking at you, breathing down your neck, trying to make sure you get what they want out of you. Um, so definitely have some practical knowledge on uh, actual gear, microphones, miking techniques, instruments. You have to know a lot of instruments. Like, I know how to set up a drum kit. I don't even drum. Um, it also helps to know what the industry standards are. I'm a Pro Tools operator certified through Avid. So definitely know industry standard stuff and try to shoot for certifications so that, you could put that in your resume and it looks pretty good.
Yeah, good. Hey, the next question is sometimes the students want to know, like, kind of where they're at right now, and where were you and where are you as a student? Are you someone who's like it sounds like you put in extra hours and things like that on your own time. But is that the kind of student you are? Are you kind of the procrastinator? Are you kind of the organizer? What kind of student are you, or have you been up to this point?
So it all depended on what I was learning at the time. Definitely, I was not the best humanities student in the class. But when it came to choir, I definitely really wanted to lock down and learn the theory and the music behind it. And um, I haven't had the chance to sight read recently, but at the time I got pretty decent at it. So it really had to be something I was interested in for me to be a good student. Not to say I was gonna let myself be the worst. Um, but when I got into the Recording Arts Center, and uh, I realized that this is something I actually want to do, and everything that I'm going to do now is going to matter. That's when I think I became a pretty good student
Good.
for what it's been.
Yeah. So kind of following your passion is kind of where your time and energy go, huh?
Exactly.
So this might be a difficult question, but I know there's probably a million little things that you have to do. We'll just talk about a recording session or whatever with an artist. What does that look like? What do you like? How early do you have to be there before the artist comes in? What are you doing to set up? And can you get like just take a billion steps and maybe make them a little more digestible? Like what do you do as an audio engineer?
So let's see. There's a band I worked with. So we knew everything. Like, okay, there's going to be 3 players. I knew their instrumentation: drums, guitar, bass, and a vocalist. Guitarist and vocalist were the same person. Um, so before I even schedule a session, I make sure I know what mics I want to use for each person. I want to know how their sound is. Getting guitar amp sound is one of the hardest things to do. Then I have to mic the amp, know what mics I want to put on that amp. Um, you know, if the drummer isn't the best drummer, you want to have more microphones. Um, that way in post production, you could just really cut it up however you'd like. But I want to say before I even step foot into a session, I probably have put in at least 10 hours of just thinking about how I want to mic everything, setting them up if they're going to play all together in the same room, or I'll have to separate them and record them each individually. Luckily, they played together for a long time, so I was able to just throw them in a room. The instruments I used, I could put them all in the same room and I wouldn't have any bleed. Um, Once we do get into a session, I'm there about an hour ahead of what time I told the guys to come in. Then I'm setting up the drum kit. I'm setting up all the amps. I'm finding sounds. I'm tuning instruments. Then miking up all the things I need to mic up. Um, then I need to set up a session, in Pro Tools, and let's see, what else do I have to do? I have to figure out what outboard gear I want to use. I need to figure out the signal flow of, okay, the vocalist is going to sing. I want him to go through the Teletronics LA2A compressor into the SSL um, graphic EQ, that type of thing. It gets really technical, and that's the fun part of it. Um, you know, One thing that I just do now is, like, if I'm recording a kick drum, I'm gonna scoop out around 400 hertz, just because it sounds like crap. And then I don't even want that in the recording. And then I'll mess around with it more. Then you get down to the recording, and the first take's never the best one. So we'll record maybe 7 passes with the whole band. Afterwards, we'll be like, okay, guitarist, just you by yourself. All right, bassist, just you by yourself. And then we'll throw in the vocalist, and everything's kind of separated. And once we feel like everything is kind of ready for mixing, or we've run out of time, that's kind of it for the recording session. Tell the guys to take off, and I'll let them know when I can bring them back in, or shoot them some mixes.
So I have a quick question before we talk about post-production. But
Yeah.
so say you're an artist and you want to do a recording session. About how long would it take a band to do like one song, following the practice you just did of, you know, the 7 passes, 7/6 passes, and each instrument by themselves, things like that? Like, how long would an artist expect to kind of be in the studio just to make maybe one track that they're gonna put out?
That particular session I talked about, I did in 4 hours, which was not ideal. But for one song, at least a 3-person band, you want 6 hours at least of recording time.
It's pretty amazing the amount of time it takes. Everyone just thinks, oh, I just hop in the studio and sing a song and leave.
Yeah.
It's hours and days and days and days that they're doing that.
Yes.
Well, then let's talk a little bit about post production, and that's kind of where the real magic happens. I'm assuming in the
Yes.
in the audio industry. So talk a little bit about that, the time it takes, and some of the, you know, again, I know there's a million things to talk about, but try and make it a little more digestible to someone who's on from the outside.
Yeah, one of the first things I learned as a mixing engineer, um, a lot of the good mixing engineers don't charge hourly, they charge a flat rate, because once you get a session from, you know, somebody else, or it's a session you've done, you don't know how long it's going to take in terms of, you know, getting it and then finishing and sending it off to mastering. Because, you know, the drummer wasn't the best drummer in the world, so it took um, more than a few hours to edit his drum takes and find the best ones and put them all in time. And then, so there's the editing aspect, which is mainly just getting all the best takes and then making sure they're all in time. That goes across all the instruments, even the vocals. That takes probably, um, you know, if it's a pretty extensive session, maybe 8 hours. You know, that's just me sitting in a room. I don't even, for that stuff, I don't even go into a studio. I'll sit at a regular computer that has, you know, Pro Tools, and I'll just sit there and just edit for hours and just listen to the best stuff. Um, and then once I do start mixing, if I know they want, if I know I want, and, you know, it kind of works out well, you know, mixing should only take 6, 8 hours. You know, I've mixed a song for upwards of like 15 hours before. And, you know, of course, this isn't like, you know, straight 15 hours. They're separated into maybe 2 or 3 sessions. But, you know, people have asked me, like, how do you listen to a song for that long? And I found, you know, like after a certain amount of time, I'm not listening to the song. I'm just listening to the sounds and stuff like that, making sure, you know, it's what I want. And, you know, there's been songs where, you know, we've recorded a certain sound, and it was my mistake for not recording what was a clean sound. Then I'm not able to change it as drastically as I could if it was just a clean guitar sound. But, you know, I've had to do it before. It's fun. Mixing can take the longer part of it. Maybe like, you know, a good song, you've probably put in like 30 hours of mixing.
Wow. Wow. And I bet at the end of it, you can't stand the song and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I leave it alone. Actually, after the recording sessions, I won't listen to the song for about a week. I'm just like, you know, let me think about it. I'll ask the artist again, like, hey, so send me some references. You know, how do you want this to sound? What's the feeling you're going for? Then, you know, then I'll think about it. I'm like, huh, how can I go about this? You know, what are some references? And I just won't even touch it, even after the mix. And yeah, I just won't touch it.
And then as far as mastering, is that something that you're involved with as well, or does that go to another like site, and is that a whole another person gets involved, or is that something that and that you're a part of as well? Like, talk about that.
Yeah. So for larger productions and people with larger budgets, they are able to have a recording engineer, a mixing engineer, and a mastering engineer, 3 separate people, maybe even a producer. But for smaller budget bands, you're the recording engineer, you're the producer, you're the mixer, and the master. Um, so the band looked at me for a lot of their creative decisions that made it to the final cut, and I mixed their stuff and I mastered their stuff as well.
All
Yeah,
right.
so I'm
Good
part of
for you.
that.
For you. So what's the best part of what you do? Like what if you had to say this is the best part of audio engineering, what do you think it is?
When it comes down to it, it's just networking and the people you meet. Um, the studio I'm at is a functioning studio that has professionals there. You just don't know who you'll run into. I've met Brian Bumgardner, Kevin from The Office. I've met Alan Arkin. Who else? Stephen Brault. John Cena I've ran into a couple of times. So like you don't even know. Like they're not even musicians, but
Yeah. Well, with the
they're there.
with the world of um, animation and things like that. I mean, it's more
Yeah,
than just music that audio engineers are working with. Now you're working with speaking and those kinds of characters too, character actors and things like that.
yeah.
So what is the next step that you see in your career? Like in 5 years, 10 years from now, what do you want to be doing? What do you see as the next kind of thing? And then how do you get there?
Starting off kind of more short term, maybe within the next year or two. I'm actually talking to some of the other alumni from ACHS. This is another good thing, I guess, part of the last question. What is the best part of being in this field? It allows me to kind of open up my field and extend it to other people. A few of my friends are filmmakers, Ryan Tolley and Darren Vega. Um, those are two guys who are writing a film right now, and they want me to be part of it, and they wanted me to write music for it. And I was like, I don't know if I could write all this music by myself. So I hit up Vince Gregorio, and so I'm going to work with him. He's going to be a producer. I'm going to be the songwriter. And I told Ryan and Darren, like, hey, we could record all of this. We could get into the studio, do ADR work. You could bring in the cameras, and we could shoot in the studio. So it kind of just opens up, you know, how creative we can actually be. Um, which we started planning that a few weeks ago, and we're hoping to get that done within the next year or two, depending on everything that's going on.
Sure.
We're playing it by ear, so that's next 2 years. The next few years after that, I want to be in Seattle. I want to. I have my eyes on some studios that are up there right now, just to kind of get out of my comfort zone, push myself a little more. Like it's one thing to leave home to go 8 hours away to a place people want to go. It's which is really cool. I like it out here, but I want to keep pushing myself. Go to Seattle. Um, yeah, just kind of go out there, make a name for myself. It's
Great.
it's a big world.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, great for you. So what advice do you have for current high school students about their career choices, or even broader about life? Like what have you learned in your couple years away from ACHS that you could impart to people who are just starting their journey?
Yeah. No matter what field you go into, no matter what career choice you make, bottom line is you just got to commit. There's no hesitating, because once you step out into the real world right after graduation, it's kind of in a harsher sense, it's kind of dog eat dog. Of course, I'm exaggerating that, but the decisions you make out here, they're real world. They have consequences. They will affect what you do in the future. Um, so just commit to what you want to do. Um, Before I decided I was going to do music, I thought I was going to do business. I thought I was going to do the more traditional route, and I just hesitated on that, and I couldn't sit down and really figure out what I wanted to do until I found the Recording Arts Center. And once I was in, I was 100% committed to that. So no matter what it is, you just have to commit, and just keep to yourself, move in silence. That's one thing I did, and it's kind of nice when you go back home and like, oh, what are you up to now? What are you up to now? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm a audio engineer. I'm a music producer. It's kind of cool to say. That's a smaller thing that I found was pretty useful.
That's great. Great. That's great advice. And then finally, do you have a favorite ACHS choir memory? Something that you've been away for a couple years. Something that maybe as you look back, that was a truly memorable thing.
Yeah, when I think about it right now, there's never one memory that comes into mind, but I just think of all the fun we've had, all the serious moments. It all comes just kind of comes back to me in a nutshell, and just makes me appreciate the music. I don't know if that answers it, but there's not one memory, and
Yeah.
it's a positive experience no matter what happened. Like, there's drama that goes on, obviously, amongst students, and there's some rehearsals where it's like nobody's locked in. But when I think about it, it's all positive. It's all good thoughts.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for doing this interview. We're really proud of you, and we know great things are ahead of you. And you've always been a special student, and I'm so glad to see that you're doing what you love to do. And so anyway, let's keep in touch, and
definitely.
ACHS Choir is very proud of you. All right.
Cool. Thank you.